Something is listening to you, right now. Not your words, not your thoughts. Something older, quieter, exact. It listens to the space between them, to the pause before you speak, to the rhythm underneath your breath. And the strangest part is that it's been responding all along. You just didn't notice. There's a hidden signal that runs through every moment of your life, unseen, but unmistakable once you feel it. It shapes the way people react to you, how doors open or stay closed, how reality bends itself to match your state. You call it luck, timing, intuition. But what if it's none of those things? What if it's you, transmitting constantly, like a radio that never turns off, sending messages the universe can't help but answer? Most people don't hear it because they're too loud inside. They confuse thinking with creating. They try to change their world by pushing harder, talking more, repeating mantras to a field that doesn't speak words. The universe doesn't respond to language. It responds to coherence, to the frequency behind the thought, not the thought itself. And when your inner world is out of tune, reality simply echoes the static. You felt the difference before, those moments when everything seems to align, when time slows, when life feels effortless for a few seconds. That wasn't coincidence. That was contact. You tuned in by accident, just long enough for the signal to recognize itself in you. It's the reason some choices feel magnetic while others drain you. The signal amplifies clarity and silences confusion. It's the silent architect behind every impossible coincidence you've ever lived. But here's the truth few ever face. The signal never stops, only your awareness of it does. Every breath, every emotion, every thought is either strengthening your transmission or distorting it. Reality isn't ignoring you. It's responding perfectly to the frequency you're holding. So the question isn't whether the signal exists, it's whether you're tuned to it. Because once you catch it, once you really hear the pulse beneath the noise, something irreversible happens. The world starts speaking back. Subtly at first, then unmistakably. And from that moment on, nothing, not even silence, ever feels accidental again. Have you ever noticed how some days seem to respond to you, while others seem to ignore you completely? There are mornings when the air feels lighter, time more synchronized, people more receptive. Other times, everything seems out of place, delays, noise, obstacles that arise without explanation. The difference between these two states isn't in the world. It's in the signal you emit without realizing it. This signal is silent, but real. It arises from the coherence between what you think, what you feel, and what your body actually vibrates. When these three layers align, life restores clarity. But when just one of them deviates, reality becomes muddled. It's like trying to tune into a radio station while the noise drowns out the melody. You still receive the sound, but everything arrives distorted. Many people spend their lives trying to resolve noise without realizing they are the ones creating it. They try to control outcomes, adjust the world, repeat empowering phrases, without understanding that the field doesn't listen to words, it listens to rhythm. And the most authentic rhythm is that of breathing. When you breathe in harmony, everything around you begins to find the same rhythm. Conversations flow, coincidences increase, internal heaviness dissolves. The body ceases to be a barrier and becomes a bridge once again. Imagine a calm lake reflecting the sky. When the wind blows, the image fragments. But when the air calms, the reflection returns. It's the same with the mind and reality. The field cannot reflect clearly if there's a storm raging inside. That's why so many choose to remain here, following each revelation, not out of curiosity, but because they feel something within them begin to adjust. Life has always tried to communicate with you, but the language is different. It's the language of coherence. The body is the translator. Each heartbeat is a word, each pause in the breath is a comma, each emotion is a sentence. And together, they form the invisible narrative that shapes what you call destiny. The question is, are you reading your own story, or just reacting to the plot the noise creates? Perhaps the signal isn't distant, just obscured. And when you begin to hear it, even for an instant, something changes. Not in the world, but in the way the world hears you. And it's at this point, in this silence that precedes clarity, that the true turning point begins to unfold. There is a moment when the silence becomes unbearable. Not the silence of the world, but the one that settles within, when what once made sense begins to dissolve. It is at this point that many lose their way, believing that emptiness is a sign of failure, when in fact, it is the harbinger of a new frequency attempting to emerge. The body feels before the mind understands. Hands grow cold. Breathing changes. And the air seems denser, as if time holds its breath along with you. It's in this space that conflict intensifies. Part of you still tries to control, to maintain what's familiar, to hold on to the old ways of the world. The other already senses that resisting is the same as drowning. The paradox is cruel. To regain your bearings, you must let go of the control you believed was the only way to stay safe. It's like standing on the edge of a cliff and discovering that the ground rebuilds itself only after you jump. Within this dilemma, emotions become jumbled. Hope and fear dance side by side. The heart races as if trying to escape, but also to make way. It's a silent war, not between good and evil, but between what you were and what you're about to become. And the price of transformation is always the same: allowing something to die within so that something else can breathe. The mind tries to understand, but the signal isn't logical. It's felt. And that's precisely what makes it so difficult to accept. Because feeling requires vulnerability, and vulnerability exposes. Exposing yourself to the unknown is like walking in a dark room, guided only by the sound of your own heart. Yet, it's in this darkness that a new direction begins to shine. Light never appears before night, it arises from contrast. You may have experienced this threshold. A moment when everything seemed to fall apart, but something invisible held you together from within. As if a silent force said, "Keep going. There's no mistake here." And even though fear tries to convince you otherwise, part of you recognizes the pattern, the same one that precedes every real turning point. The field never falls silent. It merely reorganizes itself. When everything seems still, it's because it's being rewritten. And as you try to decipher the chaos, something, discrete, precise, is redesigning the connections that unite you to the whole. It's in this space between the end and the beginning that the purest signal reveals itself. Not yet as an answer, but as a presence. Something is about to change, and this time, it will be impossible to pretend you didn't hear it. And then, something starts to move. It's not a change you see from the outside. It's an internal, almost imperceptible vibration, as if the entire body is breathing in a new way. Stiffness gives way to a more organic rhythm. And, for a brief moment, the feeling of disorder gives way to a living silence. A silence that is not empty, but full of presence. At this point, what once seemed like loss begins to reveal itself as purification. Everything that wasn't aligned simply falls away. People, habits, thoughts, the field reorganizes what stays and what goes. And while it may seem like the world is taking things away from you, the opposite is true. It's creating space. The space where the signal can finally be heard without interference. It's strange how the body knows this before the mind accepts it. A subtle warmth in the chest. A slight shiver on the back of the neck. Breathing that slows on its own. These are subtle but real signs. They are reality's first responses to your new internal state. And it is at this point that many feel the urge to support this journey, leaving a silent sign that the message has touched them, as if confirming, with a gesture, that they too feel the call of the same field. Perhaps the most surprising thing is realizing that nothing external has really changed. The work is the same, the people are the same, the weather remains the same. And yet, everything seems different. As if the world had changed lenses. That's when it hits you. It's not the universe that responds to the mind, it's the mind that learns to translate the universe. The field has always been speaking, only now have you learned to listen. This realization brings an unexpected tenderness. What was once a struggle becomes listening. What was fear becomes curiosity. Chaos begins to feel like an invitation, and the unknown ceases to be a threat and becomes a frontier. You begin to walk more lightly, not because the path has become easy, but because resistance has dissolved. The truth is, nothing has been lost. Everything has simply aligned with the new frequency you chose to sustain. And in this new rhythm, time feels different. Denser, fuller, more present. It's as if the universe has come close enough to whisper. It's not yet an answer, but it is already an acknowledgement. The signal is stronger, and if you keep listening, something even deeper is about to emerge from the silence. There is an instant, almost imperceptible, in which everything is rearranged. There's no warning, no fanfare. It's like the exact moment the sun breaks through a thick cloud. Nothing explodes, just the hue of the light changes. And you feel it. The air seems denser, your body more present, time slows down. It's the kind of transition that doesn't announce itself, it just happens. And once it happens, there's no going back. The curious thing is that, even as clarity expands, something inside you still fears losing control. It's your mind trying to protect itself from the vastness that begins to open up. Because the unknown, even when liberating, still carries the scent of danger. The body hesitates, the mind analyzes, the heart just knows. There's a sweet tension in this crossing, a thread between fear and faith, between the impulse to hold on and the call to let go. Imagine yourself at the edge of a lake in the late afternoon. The surface reflects the sky, but you know that night will soon fall. There's still light, but shadows are already creeping in. It's this in-between space, the interval between what you understand and what you can't yet explain, that holds the power of transformation. Because it's there that trust is born. And trust, in this context, isn't about expecting guarantees. It's about accepting uncertainty as part of the journey. You begin to realize that the signal connecting mind and reality isn't something you conquer, but something that reveals itself when the noise stops. The more you try to control it, the further it recedes. But when you observe it quietly, it draws closer, like a wild animal that only trusts those who don't force it. This is the nature of the field. It responds to softness. Little by little, the boundaries between inside and outside begin to dissolve. A thought sparks a coincidence. A feeling changes the course of a conversation. A pause alters the outcome of an entire day. Everything seems to communicate in a silent language, where each gesture is a response. Reality, suddenly, is no longer a stage. It is a living mirror. And yet, there's something you sense but don't understand. A deeper layer, hidden beneath the silence itself. The field seems to whisper something that can't yet be translated into words, as if the truth is preparing to be spoken. You sense the presence of a greater meaning, something that transcends logic and reason, something that has always been there, waiting to be remembered. But it's not yet time to know. It's still the prelude to recognition, the held breath before revelation. It's strange how awakening arrives not as a flash of light, but as a shadow that slowly moves until it reveals the outline of light. What once seemed certain begins to fade at the edges, and what was once invisible gains clarity. It's as if the world is being revealed from the inside out, not by an event, but by a shift in perception. The mind tries to keep up, but something within it can't. Because this transition doesn't happen in thought, it happens in feeling. A new frequency is forming, a vibration that runs through the body before it's even understood. And, for an instant, you feel everything around you respond in a subtle way, a distant sound that echoes differently, a glance that lingers a second longer, a coincidence that repeats itself. They are small signs, but together they form a map. And this map doesn't point outward, but toward the center. The center, however, is not always a place of peace. Sometimes it's the battleground between what you believe you are and what you're trying to emerge. It's at this point that duality manifests itself most strongly. There's a part that wants to trust, go with the flow, surrender to the unknown. And another that still clings to predictability, to control, to the fear of losing what it perceives as security. The paradox is cruel. The fear of losing what binds you is what prevents you from achieving what sets you free. Imagine yourself with your eyes closed, in a dark room, with a ray of light shining through a crack. You can run toward the light, or you can get used to the shadows. Both choices require courage, but only one of them transforms you. Light, as revealing as it is, also exposes what was hidden. And that's why awakening hurts, because it reveals both beauty and wounds. There are moments when you feel everything at once, expansion and heaviness, love and absence, hope and fear. It's a tide that ebbs and flows, and in each wave is a reminder that life is oscillating between what has already been and what is still being formed. Nothing is fixed, nothing is definitive. Everything pulsates. And within that pulse, something calls to you. Not in words, but in sensation. It's like the muffled sound of a heartbeat on the other side of the wall. You know it's there, even without seeing it. This silent presence is the harbinger of revelation, the prelude to something greater that hasn't yet revealed itself. It's close enough to be felt, but far enough that you must penetrate the veil of fear to find it. The field is breathing with you. Each inhalation becomes a question, and each exhalation, an answer you don't yet understand. Something is approaching, something that might change everything, but it's not yet time for an answer, it's time for listening. The air seems to hold its breath along with you, as if the universe itself is waiting for the right moment to speak. When the signal begins to align, life responds, but in unexpected ways. Changes don't come in bursts, but in adjustments. Small, almost invisible. An email that arrives at just the right time. A conversation that seemed casual but becomes a turning point. A thought that would once have derailed you now pushes you forward. It's as if the whole world begins to silently cooperate, stitching coincidences into places where there was previously noise. But along with this harmony comes the test. The field, which now recognizes you, begins to observe whether you recognize it too. It returns what you vibrate, not what you say you want. And that's when the conflict changes form. It's no longer about external chaos, but about internal coherence. Every choice becomes a mirror. Every reaction, a measure of how much you still listen to fear. There are times when it seems like everything is going backward, but it's just the signal testing the consistency of the frequency you're sustaining. The universe, if we can call it that, has a curious way of confirming intentions. It shows you the opposite of what you asked for, so you can see if the vibration is real or just wishful thinking. And it's in this contrast between action and reaction that the truth of a purpose is measured. Think of a seed. Before it can grow, it must break. From the outside, it looks like destruction. From the inside, it's birth. Life does the same to you. It breaks what needs to give to allow expansion. Every discomfort is a test of attunement. It's as if the field asks, "Do you still hear me even when the noise returns?" Over time, you begin to see the pattern. What seemed like coincidence becomes communication. What once seemed like an obstacle now seems like choreography. There's a dance between what you emit and what the world returns to you. A subtle but precise flow. And within it, you realize that every movement matters, even the quietest. Many, upon realizing this, feel an urge to share, to translate what they feel into words, to leave a record, a kind of echo of what they are seeing. Because understanding the signal is also learning to express it. And when you speak from this state, the frequency expands, reaches others, resonates. Every word spoken with truth becomes part of the field, a vibration that cannot be erased. Still, there's a sense of suspense in the air. Something seems about to reveal itself, as if the next layer of understanding is just a step away from the surface. Breathing slows, the heart becomes more attentive. It's the prelude to a new phase, where consciousness doesn't just observe the field, it begins to shape it. But before creation, there's always a moment of silence. A moment that demands listening. And perhaps now is the time to simply feel what resonates within, before the next signal arrives. As the signal strengthens, you begin to notice that the world responds not only to what you do, it responds to what you are. Every emotion, every silent thought, every intentional gesture begins to carry weight. Reality becomes more sensitive, as if the air around you has gained consciousness. And with this comes a new responsibility, to realize the power that has always been disguised in small acts. But with clarity comes doubt. It's easy to stay centered when everything flows, when the signals align. The challenge begins when the connection seems to disappear, when the field becomes silent, when coincidences cease, when intuition seems to hide. In these moments, the mind tries to regain control. It wants to decipher what went wrong. It wants to measure, prove, guarantee. And that's when the signal is lost again, because control creates noise, and noise erases listening. Still, something inside you remains attentive, observing the movement of the tide. There's a part that understands that silence is also an answer, that the absence of signals is an invitation to deepen your listening. And in this space, amidst the uncertainty, you realize what almost no one else does. The field doesn't disappear, it waits. It observes whether your frequency is real or just a reaction to what it receives. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who seeks signals, but as someone who emits them. This changes everything. The boundaries between action and consequence become blurred. The world is no longer a stage, it's an extension. Everything vibrates according to your internal state. A simple breath, if taken coherently, changes the course of a conversation. A thought of gratitude transforms the atmosphere of a room. Energy reorganizes around those who choose to remain present. But there's a price. Remaining conscious is exhausting for the ego, which feeds on distractions. It's like holding a lit candle in the wind. It requires constancy. It requires faith in the invisible. Sometimes the mind tries to convince itself that nothing is changing, when in fact the field is silently restructuring itself on planes beyond logic's reach. This is the most delicate stage, the point at which many give up, believing they've lost their connection, when in fact they're about to cross the veil. And when the veil begins to dissolve, there is no spectacle. There is a deep, almost unsettling calm. The world seems the same, but something has changed in the texture of reality. Things no longer happen to you, but through you. The boundaries between intention and event become thin, almost transparent. And, even without fully understanding, the signal is active. It moves with your breath, with your gaze, with every silent choice. It's not yet the apex. There's something beyond, something that insinuates itself in the pauses between one thought and another. A call that comes not from outside, but from within, as if the field itself were asking you to take another step, a step without a map. It's on this threshold between faith and surrender that true transformation begins to take shape, even if the world, for now, still seems the same. As you cross this invisible point, something within you begins to reorganize. The boundaries that once separated what you think from what's happening outside begin to dissolve. Reality, subtly, seems to respond in real time. But not with words, with synchronicities, with gestures, with delays that reveal new paths. There's a silent dialogue taking place between what you feel and what manifests, and with each response, a new question is formed. And it is in this space between what is revealed and what remains hidden that true power resides. Because the sign is not just a bridge, it is a mirror. It reflects your clarity as precisely as it reflects your doubt. If there is hesitation within you, the world hesitates. If there is surrender, the path opens. And the most disconcerting thing is to realize that the universe was never unpredictable, it was always too precise. It just responded to the wrong frequency. There are days when the signal seems clear, like the sound of a bell in the wind. Everything flows, everything fits together, time bends in favor of what you feel. And there are others when the noise returns, thick, heavy, almost suffocating. Fear resurfaces, the mind questions, the body stiffens. But even in this chaos, there is coherence. It's the field adjusting the volume, testing whether the listening is still alive. Because the purpose of the signal isn't to protect you from the darkness, it's to teach you to recognize the light even within it. You begin to realize that clarity isn't constant, and that's what makes it true. No pure sound exists without silence between the notes. No dawn breaks without crossing the shadow of night. What defines balance isn't the absence of contrast, but the dance between opposites. And perhaps harmony is precisely this, allowing oscillation to exist without trying to control it. At this stage, the field seems to observe silently. It gives you space, like a master stepping back to see if the apprentice can walk alone. The coincidences diminish, the responses become more subtle. It's not punishment, it's trust. It's the universe asking you to create without relying on signals, to emit before waiting for the echo. Imagine walking down a hall of mirrors, each one reflecting a version of you, past, future, possible. With each step, one reflection fades and another emerges. The path isn't straight, it builds itself as you go. And what guides you is no longer the fear of making mistakes, but the feeling of being in resonance. Deep down, there's a premonition that the next threshold is near. A dense stillness hangs in the air, like before the rain. The heart beats slower, the mind tries to understand, but can't name what it feels. It's as if reality itself is holding its breath, waiting for the exact moment when you'll understand that the signal was never outside, nor inside, but between. A space where everything begins and everything returns. And yet, something within it remains untouched, like a spark that observes the entire game without ever moving. There comes a moment when the signal ceases to be sought. It becomes the very way of being. You no longer try to decipher it, you no longer wait for proof, you no longer need the world to confirm what already pulses within you. Everything falls into place, but not out of obedience to your will, but because you have finally learned to align yourself with the rhythm of what is. This is the silent turning point. When the universe ceases to be a mystery to be understood and becomes a presence to be felt. The field doesn't change from the outside in. It bends when you change from the inside out. Small decisions, breathing before reacting, giving thanks before asking, observing before judging, begin to rewrite the invisible pattern of your reality. It's as if the air itself becomes complicit in your intention. Coincidences no longer surprise, they confirm. Every simple gesture, every word spoken with truth, now carries a new weight, the weight of conscience. And it is at this point that power reveals itself. Not as domination, but as harmony. You no longer need to force the outcome, because you understand that every delay is also precision. What seemed like an obstacle was merely the time needed for the frequency to adjust. You begin to realize that nothing was lost, everything was simply preparing for the right moment. Your entire life reorganizes itself around your coherence. But the most beautiful thing of all is what comes after understanding. Sharing. Something inside you wants to expand, touch others, translate the unspeakable. Not out of vanity, but out of gratitude. Because there's something sacred in realizing that this understanding isn't just yours, it's collective. Each person who awakens the entire field. And that's why so many choose to stay, to follow, to breathe together. It's not an audience, it's a frequency. A space where knowledge transforms into experience and experience into remembrance. You feel the path continue, but now without haste. What was once a search is now presence. What was once effort is now flow. Each breath becomes a link, each pause an altar. Reality ceases to be a stage and becomes an extension of your own vibration. The mind, once noisy, learns to be silent. And in this silence, there is something no teaching can explain. A sense of return, of home, of origin. If something within you has recognized this truth, leave a trace. A word, a sign, something that says, I felt it. This is how the field finds you again. This is how the sign perpetuates itself, from one heart that remembers to another that awakens. Because, in the end, the secret was never about creating realities. It was about remembering that you were always part of the one that creates everything. And now that you've heard the sound behind the silence, perhaps the entire universe is just waiting for your next breath to respond.